All right, perfect. So I'm so excited you guys are here today. And let me go ahead and get our slides pulled up here. Perfect. Okay, so Darcy just let me know that this particular forum is number 100. Yeah, so
Congratulations.
this is number 100, not for me personally of doing 100, but in community, 100 videos. That's amazing. So you guys are a part of being on the 100th video today. So congratulations. So welcome everyone. This is our community forum that we are doing called the Top 3 Characteristics of an Influential Leader. So I'm really excited to talk about this because being in leadership and being in a salon company, it's all about how can I be the absolute best, most influential leader I can possibly be. We talk a lot about, as salon owners, we wear lots of hats, right? So we are the HR department. We are the maintenance crew. We are the, have to be the super creative and innovative one. And we have to be a mentor and a coach and influential and all the things. So sometimes that can be a little tough. So I'm super excited that we have this platform, that we have this community to be able to learn and help support each other. And how do I do that in the best way possible so that I can lead all these amazing people that call my salon company home, how I can lead them in the best way. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Are you guys excited? Awesome. So let me introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Culverhouse, and I am the Enneagram practitioner with Summit. I'm a part of the leadership division, so a lot of my time is spent with working, coaching, and mentoring salon owners, leaders, teams, whenever it comes to helping them understand who they are and why they do the things that they do through the lens of the Enneagram. And I absolutely love what I get to do. I'm also a salon owner with my husband, Jason, and we have been salon owners for 16 years. I've been in the industry for like 27, 28 years, but my husband and I, we've been business partners for 16 years, and we have 3 salon locations in Texas and 1 in Minnesota. So, I've been through all the things that you have been through. If you've experienced it, I probably have too. And if you haven't experienced it yet, I've probably experienced it and I can help with it. So, all the things, hurricanes, walkouts, grief, pandemic, we all did that, right? So I've been there. So I love to be able to hold hands and kind of lock arms with all of you because we're all kind of doing this together and we need each other, right? So that's why I'm excited to share with y'all today. So if you are interested in learning more about what I do, you can kind of scan that or just reach out to me, and I'd love to get connected with you. So let's start by talking about the top 3 characteristics of an influential leader. There's lots of things that a leader needs to kind of have characteristics whenever it comes to being able to be super influential. But there's the top 3. So let's start off by talking a little bit about the difference between influence and credibility. Because typically leaders are strong in either or. They're either strong in influence or they're strong in credibility. And the goal is to help you be able to grow and kind of be balanced in both. So, what's the difference between influence and credibility? So, credibility is more of a leader who people trust. People trust them because they do what they say they're going to do. They are credible because they have direction, clarity whenever it comes to what direction the team needs to move in. They are pretty direct and pretty quick decision makers. This type of leader, a leader with high credibility, may not give you the warm fuzzies, right? So they may not be the ones who are, mushy gushy, all of that, super fun, all the things, but they do have a lot of credibility because they do what they say they're going to do. People will follow them because where they're going, they trust that they are going to go where they're going. So they will follow them. And then we have what's called an influential leader. When we have an influential leader who has really high influence, it is the type of leader that people love. And they're like, I don't know where we're going, but I love this leader so much that I will follow them wherever they're going. If we're going to jump off the cliff, I'm jumping off the cliff with her because she just has so much influence, and the way she makes me feel and the way she casts the vision. I can see it. It may take us a little while to get there, or I don't know how we're going to get there, but I trust her because she has so much influence. So we need both, right? We need influence and we need credibility because we need clarity whenever we're moving in a certain direction. And we need people to be able to believe in where we're going as well and trust us in that they're willing to follow us. So we're going to talk about the top 3 characteristics today whenever it comes to the most influential, incredible, impactful leaders. And that's not just in our industry. So this data is actually something that was compiled by an organization called the Flipping Group. And these different 3 scales are actually what they used whenever they were doing research on what are the top 3 characteristics that we see in the most. Leaders whenever it comes to top CEOs, top athletes that are the most successful, world leaders in government. What does it look like? Those top 3 characteristics that they all seem to have whenever it came to being the best of the best when it came to leadership. So are you guys excited to find out what these 3 things are? It's like, what could they be? So the first one is called the need for achievement scale. So we're going to be looking at a scale here, and it's going to go from all the way here to 0, imagine 0 on this end, all the way up to a 10 at the other end. So just imagine that's what that scale is 0 to 10. So the first scale, whenever it comes to the top 3 characteristics, is the need for achievement. We can also call that urgency and intensity. It's the urgency and intensity or the need for achievement that a leader has. So we can also say it is their value on time. What is their intensity around time? So at the far end of the spectrum, we see laid back, super laid back. And then at the other end of the scale, we see driven. So I'm just kind of curious, where do you guys feel like it ends up on the most influential leader whenever it comes to need for achievement? Anyone? Anyone?
You're asking where do you think that we need to fall as an influential leader for achievement?
Yep. Where do you think on the scale is the optimum range?
I would have to say probably somewhere right in the middle. I mean, you don't want to be like too hectic crazy, but you also don't want to be too laid back and chill either. You kind of want to be right in the middle.
Yep. So let's see. All right. So the optimum range is kind of really far down on the spectrum. And I love what you said, Crystal, because yeah, I mean, it's not super healthy as a leader to be this maniac that's just like driven all the time and sleeps like 3 hours a night and, kind of has the mantra of, I'll sleep when I die. Like that's not healthy, right? But it's the value that you put on time, the high value that you put on time is what that need for achievement scale actually is. So, priority, clarity, and energy. So, to be in that optimum range, it's how well as a leader do you prioritize things? Like, I always like to talk about there are glass balls and there are rubber balls, right? In our world, we have to juggle a lot. And sometimes when we're stressed, or maybe if that need for achievement is kind of in an unhealthy space, we feel like everything is a glass ball, right? And we're like, oh my God, I have to hit this. I have to hit this. Because if any of it falls, it's going to break. But whenever we have a really healthy need for achievement, we're able to prioritize what are those glass balls and what are those rubber balls that we're responsible for. The glass balls, if we let those fall, yeah, those are going to break. But there are some things that aren't a super high priority. That's a rubber ball. If we allow that to go, it will bounce and we can pick it back up later. So it's having a really healthy kind of view of what our priorities are and placing a high value of our time on the things that are most urgent and most important. And then clarity, being able to cast the vision in a clear way for our teams and giving clarity to who, when, what, all the things to give people a clear picture of what the vision is and be able to build clarity around where we're going and how we're going to get there. And placing a high value on the time that it's going to actually take realistically to be able to do that. And then energy. So, a high value on time and being able to prioritize and give clarity to our teams, that takes a certain level of energy, right? Of being able to have the energy to be able to communicate in a really healthy way of what our priorities are, how we're going to get there, and being able to lead with a positive energy. Crystal, I love the thought process that you have because to be a healthy leader, we have to be able to know how to recharge and restore our own energy, right? We're not like this endless energizer bunny that actually recharges on its own. We have to be able to prioritize and have clarity around our own selves and our own leadership health of what does it look like for me to be able to prioritize that to recharge my battery so that I have the energy to give to my team. So just because that scale is all the way, close, like in the 8 or the 9 range, 8.5 range, doesn't mean we burn out and we burn ourselves to the ground, right? It just means that we have a lot of structure and a high value on time of what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and for ourselves as leaders as well. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. So our next scale is our critical thought process. Scale number 2 is our critical thought process. So you can also call that a criticality scale. It is our standards and our expectations on things. So down at the end, we have our cheerleader. Down at the far end of the scale, there's the cheerleader, and at the other end of the scale is the critic. So where on the scale is the most do the most influential, incredible leaders fall? So anyone have a guess? A wild guess?
I'm gonna say, like, probably not quite in the middle, but more towards cheerleader.
Okay. Okay. I love it. Good guess. Good guess. Any other guesses?
I'd say closer to the cheerleader side also because I feel like that's what our team like thrives off of is like the positive like reinforcement of like, them feeling like they're doing a good job.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. Affirmations are so important, right? Um, so yeah, perfect. I love it. So let's see where we fall. Right in the middle. A little bit maybe towards the other side, but here's what's really fascinating about this. So our critical thought process, our standards, and our expectations. So we have in this little section right here, we have our cheerleader captains of the cheerleading squad, right? So right before we get to the optimum range, we have that person who is kind of like the captain of the cheerleaders of like, you know what? I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader. I'm going to be the one who is really vocalizing what you're doing well. I'm really going to focus on those things. So captain of the cheerleading squad. And then right in the middle, we have what's called a coach. So there's the rule of thumb in leadership. We cannot cheerlead someone to success. So just by cheerleading, we cannot help someone be able to get to their success. So we've kind of got to be in that coach range. Because here's what happens. When we go too far to the other side and we're more of a critic, that is the one who's walking into the space and instantly seeing everything that's not okay. They're the one who's instantly saying, okay, that person is out of dress code. Oh my gosh, there is hair around that styling chair. Why are these towels not being done? Why is the sink full of dishes? It's that critical eye of walking into the room and instantly being able to see absolutely everything that's not okay. So, I mean, we can't lead people that way, right? They're going to run and hide whenever they see us walking into the building because they're like, oh God, oh God, oh God. So we can't cheerlead someone to success. And then someone is not really going to want to follow us if we're always walking into the room and focusing on what's not okay, right? So the higher you are on this criticality scale, the further to the critic side that you are, the more intense people experience you as. Your intensity, your energy is just bigger and more intense. So, how do we get in that optimum range? What does that look like to be a coach? So, I always kind of look at it this way. With a coach, here's what a coach tends to do. So, let's imagine a football team, right? And you have your star quarterback that is starting the game and they do a really amazing job, and it's a really good game, right? Whenever that quarterback comes off the field and they go to their coach, a good coach is going to say, hey, you killed it. Like, I mean, you were on fire today. You did amazing. I love how you listened to what we talked about in practice. I love how you executed that. I mean, I'm so proud of you. Are you okay if I share with you a couple of things that I think can make you even better? So it's not just focusing on just the good and like, oh my gosh, you're a rock star, you're doing amazing. And if that quarterback kind of really fumbled it up and didn't do a great job, that coach is, not going to necessarily be like, oh my gosh, you totally like screwed up the game. That was the worst performance ever. Like you're not going to get the maximum play out of that player, right? So you've got to be somewhere in the middle to where you're not too fluffy with them, but you're not too critical either. It's like, let me be able to share with you the both and. So not the either or. So with people on our teams, when we're doing one-on-ones with them, it's coming into those one-on-ones and saying, all right, let's celebrate. What are your wins? What are you super proud of? What do you feel like you did really, really well this month? That's amazing. I love that. I totally agree with you. I noticed that in you this month. Are you okay with if I share with you a couple of things that I think could stretch you and grow you even a little bit more? So it's having that mid-range of being able to be a true coach. And I think a lot of times whenever we think of the word coach, sometimes, especially in one-on-ones, we're like, we need to just focus on the good. We need to just focus on what they're doing well. We need to just celebrate the wins. But my encouragement to you guys is start to focus on the both and. So if you're too far to the critic side, maybe it's incorporating a little bit more cheerleading for them to be able to bring that dial down a little bit of the criticality. So we're going to talk a little bit more later on of what are some behaviors that I can do to turn down my critic if my critic is really loud? Or what are some things that I can do to turn up my critic if I'm too much of a cheerleader? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So here's the thing to remember with the critical thought process. To be in a healthy range, if you see it, say it, and then solve it. So see it, say it, solve it is kind of the mantra whenever it comes to our critical thought process. All right. Our need to engage in nurturing behaviors, that is our influential leader characteristic number 3. So the first one was urgency and intensity, that need for achievement, that inner drive and that high value on our time, priority, clarity. Number 2 was criticality, our critical thinking process. And number 3 is the one that always surprises leaders, of that most influential leader has that need to engage in nurturing behaviors. So that nurturing skill, your ability of how you make people feel about themselves is one of the top 3 characteristics whenever it comes to leadership. So where do you think the scale lies here? What do you think?
I would say probably, I'm such an in the middle person,
Yeah.
but I am going to lean a little bit more towards grace. Like kind of in the middle, but lean towards grace.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Let's check it out. You were dead on, Kim. There you go.
Yay!
Yay! So this is the scale of making people feel that they matter. And I think old leadership back in the day was all about boss and manager. Just do your job, just do what I tell you to do and, do it well. I'll do a performance review to tell you if you're doing it good or not. And I'll give you some tips on how to improve. That's kind of old leadership style, right? Now we know it makes such a huge difference and it matters so much if you want to be an influential leader on you making people feel like they matter. So being on these scales in these optimum range is going to help you be able to become that most influential and credible leader. You're able to see it, say it, and solve it whenever it comes to criticality, but you're also able to help people feel that they actually matter. And this is your ability to express affirmations, express your gratitude for the people that are on your team and what they bring to the table. So a lot of times, and here's the truth, it's not that owners don't feel it on the inside. It's kind of like, I don't know how many of y'all grew up with family members like this, but it was like, I love you. I shouldn't have to say it. I love you. And it's like, well, it'd kind of be nice to hear it every once in a while, right? It feels good to hear what other people see in you and what they appreciate about you. But sometimes as owners and leaders, remember all those balls? Remember all those hats that we wear? We're so busy and everything feels urgent and important that sometimes it's like, oh, I feel it, but I just haven't had the time to be able to slow down and express it. And I'm here today to tell you that nurturing behaviors is a glass ball whenever it comes to leadership. It's so important. Yes, the truth is a really, really beautiful thing, and it's needed and necessary, but it's not what we say, it's how we say it. So it's not saying the important things that need to be said to be able to help and support people, because the truth is so valuable and important. So it's not saying the truth, but it's how are you saying the truth, if that makes sense. So that optimum range is closer to the end of grace whenever it comes to these nurturing behaviors and how we express ourselves and how we make people feel. So important. So I always say, and Cynthia, I hope it's okay if I say this, I won't say the real word, but a lot of times in leadership, we have to use something called a shiz sandwich. HISHI asterisk, if you get what I'm saying here. So a lot of times, in leadership, if we're really high on the grace side, it's like, oh my gosh, we want to tell them all the things that we absolutely love about them. And that's the bread, right? At the first of the meeting, all the amazing things. I like to call it, if you're too far on the grace side, it's like Texas toast. I don't know if you've ever had Texas toast, but it's really, really thick. So we tell them all the amazing things about themselves. And then a thin little spread of peanut butter in the middle is the truth. And then we follow up really quickly with another like Texas toast size affirmations, all the things that we love about them, because, we're like so worried about hurting their feelings, right? Now, when we're too far to the truth end, it's like there's no bread at all. It's like, here, let me just give you the peanut butter and let me just tell you the way that it is. And, I'm just telling you the truth. You need to know the truth. So whenever we're delivering hard or having hard conversations with people on our teams, it's like a healthy balance of that. It's like not how we say it or not what we say, but how we say it whenever we're delivering kind of those hard things and expressing ourselves in that shiz sandwich. Another thing that I like to remind owners of too, whenever it comes to nurturing behaviors, it's not just focusing on our team's accomplishments. Yay, you made retail rock star. Yay, you level jumped. Yay, you had your biggest day ever. Those are all really great things to celebrate, and that's a great place to start. But if you're really wanting to help people feel that they matter, I highly encourage you to start celebrating qualities and characteristics you notice in people of who they are as a person, not just what they do, but who they are. So maybe it's that front desk person and you're like, you know what? I just want to high five Amy because she is smiling and is so kind. No matter what kind of day she's having, she always makes people feel valued and important. Or that associate that has just started, not just focusing on the task that they're accomplishing, but maybe some of the characteristics and qualities of who they are as a person, of sitting down with them at the end of their shift and saying, you know what I've noticed in you? You have such a high need to serve and do an amazing job, and to do your job really, really well. And I think that is such an amazing characteristic you have, just as a human being. So it's focusing on who someone is, not just what they do. So those are the top 3 characteristics. And before we move on to how do I dial this up or how do I dial this down, I would love to kind of hear from some of you. What are some of the scales whenever it comes to a need for achievement, that critical thinking process, or nurturing behaviors? Which one for you are you like, you know what? That may be a scale that I kind of want to work on a little bit, or this is a scale that I feel like I'm kind of in the optimum range. What are y'all's thoughts? I'd love to hear.
I'll chime in. I feel like one of the ones that I need to work on most is the nurturing behaviors.
Mm,
I definitely feel like I like to help problem solve, or, how can we be doing things better, or what could I be helping you to make life easier, or, you know, just picking out and noticing things, areas of improvement.
mhm.
But I definitely have a harder time pointing out and recognizing the positive things. So it's definitely something that I need to work on.
Thank you for that. I love that. Thank you for being honest, because I think it's true for a lot of us. We didn't get into this business because we don't like people, right? You probably would have chosen a different business to get into if you didn't like people very much. Um,
Right.
so, so it's not an issue of not caring and not wanting to and seeing the best in others. It's just, oh my gosh, I want it so badly for you. So let me help you be able to get there quicker, faster. And
Right.
you're trying so hard to get them quicker, faster, that a lot of times it's like, oh my God, I didn't even think to slow down and focus on some of those characteristics and traits that they have and they bring to the table as a human being. That makes, I mean, that makes total sense.
Yeah, I almost think of it as like, I started this career as a hairstylist. And so, when we're having our consultation with our guests, it's like we're there to be problem solvers. They're telling us a struggle they're having with their hair or something that's not working. And, our immediate reaction is to like, well, I have this, or let's try this, let's do this. And I think it's a little bit different when you're working with, people and people on your team. And, it doesn't mean that I don't care. It's just finding ways, like I love what you said, like slowing down. I think that's one of my big things is, I work as a stylist in the salon as well, and trying to wear both hats at the same time is sometimes challenging. So I definitely need to focus on that area a little bit.
Yes, 100% agree. Yes, I've been there too. I totally, totally get it. Anybody else? Which scale stands out to you the most?
I would say for myself is the achievement. I think I flow so back and forth. Like I'm not consistent with that. The critical thought and the nurturing behavior, I think I'm pretty solid. Like in
Mhm.
those two, they just feel really good to me. But the achievement for sure. Sometimes it's just how passionate you are about it in the moment, or it just fluctuates a lot for me. I'm not solid on that one at all.
Yes, 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 yes. No, I get that too, because sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, decision fatigue, right? And
Yeah.
it's like my motor, my energy, I'm depleted, man. Like my battery, it's depleted. And so I love that you share that, Kim, because that's a huge indicator of, okay, what are you doing to recharge your own energy, recharge your own battery so that you do have the energy to give and to be able to prioritize and give clarity to things. Because, I always say we're kind of like a bank account. We literally are, if you just think in those terms, we are constantly making withdrawals and giving to other people, our teams, systems, processes, all the things that it takes to run a company. And if there are no deposits being made, I don't know about you guys, but in my early 20s, I would get these little slips in the mail that were called overdraft notices. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's like, oh, not only did you overdraft your account, but we charged you $20 because you did that too. And so you kind of would get in this deeper and deeper hole. It was awful. And so I think if we're not mindful as leaders of being able to focus on what are we doing for ourselves to be able to make deposits back into ourselves so that whenever we're making these withdrawals, we've got a healthy bank account, emotional, mental bank account in ourselves to be able to make withdrawals generously because we're consistently making deposits, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about what are some things that I can do to be able to dial up or dial down some of these things. So whenever I'm working with my Enneagram clients, we talk a lot about with the Enneagram, we don't focus on strengths and weaknesses, right? We don't speak in the world of either or, good or bad. It's the world of both and each Enneagram type has amazing strengths that they bring to the table. And I like to just say, sometimes when we are stressed, the volume on those strengths get dialed up a little too high, a little too loud, where it actually becomes a constraint or a blind spot that we have. And then sometimes we have some traits or characteristics that are dialed down too low, and we need to actually dial up the volume on those to be more influential and have more credibility with our team. So it's all about balancing out the volume, right? So how do we balance out the volume on these top 3 characteristics? So if you are needing to dial up your urgency and intensity, if you're needing to dial up that value that you place on time, having things as a priority, clarity, energy, all of those things, here's some things that you can actually practice. You can actually start these like today if you want to. So the first one is start to clarify your expectations for other people on your team more clearly and frequently. So does everyone that reports to you know what they can and should be doing? Are they clear on that? And do they know the degree that you're wanting it done and what the deadline is? Because sometimes we're moving so quick, so fast that we aren't giving a clear picture. We're not painting a clear picture of what the expectation is, what everyone can and should be doing. And sometimes, here's something to write down. You've got to say something 7 times in 7 different ways for someone to hear it. So I know all of us have said, I have already said this, and people are still acting confused. We've all been there. But the truth is, we have to say something 7 times in 7 different ways for our team to actually hear it. So what does that look like? That means saying things very clearly, but saying it frequently. So that may be on your communication back page, whether that's Facebook, GroupMe, Slack, whatever it is. That may be in your huddles in the morning, at your team meetings. It may be, lots of different creative ways that you can think of to be able to start to clarify what people can and should be doing. So if you're needing to dial that volume up a little bit on your urgency and intensity, just get more frequent and more clear with your communication, and that's going to help dial that up. Set a daily top 3. So identify what are those top 3 priorities that need your best and most focused attention for the day. So not the long list, just clarify 3. So remember how I was talking about glass balls and rubber balls? Identify What are my top 3 glass balls today that I need to give my best and most focused attention to today? And if I get those done, that's a win for me. So it's starting to clarify and really, really prioritize what those top 3 things are that need to get the most of your attention. Because sometimes we can have so many things on our list, and especially if we feel like everything is important, we can kind of start to lose focus and only focus on the things that feel easiest or not as stressful, right? But if you really focus on clarifying those top 3 things, this is going to help dial up that urgency and intensity for you. So speak up more. Now, if you're not an owner and maybe you're a manager, you're on the leadership team, sometimes if our urgency and intensity is dialed down a little too low, something you can do to dial that up is to speak up more. So speaking up more in huddles, speaking up more in meetings, being more assertive in those ways, falling less into observation mode. And what I mean by observation mode is you just kind of sit back and you're just kind of taking the conversation in of like, oh yeah, you're engaged, you're listening, you're a part of the conversation, but you're just more of an observer. So if you're wanting to dial that urgency and intensity up, start asserting yourself more and speaking up more. I always say with some of my Enneagram clients where we're trying to dial that urgency and intensity up, I always say, I want you to be the first to speak up in the huddle, or I want you to be the first one to speak up in the meeting. And, less deference to those dominant personalities, because some people who have high urgency and intensity, oh my gosh, they're like talking the whole time in the meeting, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I'll just let them kind of, take the lead and, they're in charge. And so if you're wanting to dial your urgency and intensity up is, maybe try not deferring so much to those dominant personalities and kind of asserting yourself a little bit more of like, hang on one second, I have something that I want to add to this. Can I kind of share something that's on my mind or something I would like to contribute? So dialing that up a little bit. Does that make sense? Awesome. So this is if you need to dial it up. Now, what if you need to dial your nurturing up a little bit? And here's the beautiful thing. All of these scales hold hands together. So if you dial your nurturing up, automatically your criticality and your urgency and intensity is going to kind of adjust a little bit. So if you dial the volume on nurturing up, the volume on criticality is going to kind of dial down a little bit just naturally, which is really cool. So if you need to dial up your nurturing, one thing you can start to do is start to be more aware that this strong presence that you have, which is a strength, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in if you weren't an amazing leader. You have big energy, you have a strong presence, but it's starting to be aware that sometimes that can be overwhelming to some people on your team if it's dialed up high. So if you want to dial your nurturing up, start to listen first. Don't always be the first one to speak. And use more language like, oh my gosh, thank you for that. That is so good. So if that person, it falls out of observation mode and gets the courage to kind of speak up first, if you are high in your urgency and intensity and you want to dial your nurturing up, affirming that person of like, oh my gosh, Kim, thank you so much I'm so glad you said that. That was super helpful. That's a really great thought. I love that idea. Can you tell me more of what you're thinking around that? So as a leader, if you're wanting to dial your nurturing up, start to listen more and start to use more language of affirming that you want people to contribute more whenever they're sharing. That's actually a good thing. Make a priority when you walk into your salon company that you greet everyone before you go into the office, or before you move on to those guests for the day, or before you move on to the task for the day. So it's kind of slowing the intensity down and taking time, first thing, to just walk over and say good morning to everyone, and say goodbye to everyone before you leave. So something, whenever I'm working with some of my Enneagram clients and we're trying to dial that nurturing up, this is a huge step of just walking through before you leave for the day and say, good night. Love you guys. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Had such a great day with everyone, but it's walking around and saying, acknowledging every person in the building before you leave. This is to make a point that everyone is seen and valued on the team just by acknowledging them. It makes them feel so seen and appreciated, and it's a big, big deal. Another thing you can do if you want to dial up nurturing is more consistently affirming people. Now, I do want to add, be authentic about it. So it's not like, the junior high yearbook when everyone's signing it, on the last day of school. And it's like, love ya, have a great summer. You're a great person. It's like, okay, everyone said that, right? So you want it to be authentic. You want it to be genuine. So be more consistently nurturing and less selective with who is easy for you. A lot of times we're kind of connected, and it's just as human beings, it's easier with other people than it is with others. But people pick up on that. So be less person specific and be less selective with who you're doing it with. I would actually even encourage you to think of the people on your team that maybe you haven't really had very much of a conversation with, or you don't really talk to very often. And so 60 extra compliments over the next 30 days. So what that looks like is maybe 2 people on your team, and just in passing, it can be kind of like what we were talking about of like, hey, Kim, I just want you to know, like, I love working with you. And you're so fun and so positive. And I just want to say that I love working with you on this team. 2 seconds. But oh my gosh, how that makes the heart grow, right? Just to be acknowledged. It could be texting your front desk person who's opening that morning and saying, hey, I am stopping by Starbucks. I wanted to grab you something too when I grab something for myself. What can I bring you today? So it can be as big as you want it to be, or it can be as quick and easy as you want it to be. But it's just those 60 extra intentional moments over the next 30 days to just make people feel seen and appreciated. That is going to dial your nurturing up. So maybe you need to dial that criticality up a little bit. And maybe you're too much of a cheerleader. So what does that look like? So if you're needing to dial that criticality up, start to focus on better. Put on the lens of what could be better. If you're too much of a cheerleader and just focusing on the positive, maybe put on that lens of like, if I was going to walk into this building, what could be better here? Always thinking of how you can make what you're responsible for even better. So dialing that up a little bit. And be more specific with your coaching. So asking more what if questions, asking more why to really understand and get clarity. Think of yourself as the chief better officer. So not the CEO, but the CBO. I'm now the chief better officer. Focusing on making the team, processes, people that you're coaching even better. So remember how I said, yes, it's amazing to focus on what they're doing great, but are you okay with, and ask for permission, are you okay with if I share with you a couple of things that I see that can make you even better at what you're doing? Sharing in those leadership team meetings of our associate program is amazing, but I have a couple of ideas that I think can make it even better, that can make us improve even more. So if you're needing to dial up that criticality, these are some things that can help with that. And then start having more candid conversations. So holding people accountable, that 24-hour rule. I always say, if you think about it twice, you need to say something. So it's that think it twice rule of, something about how that front desk person showed up to work today. I swear she was still hungover from last night, and she didn't have any makeup on. And then she was a little bit rude to that guest. at the front desk. We've all been there. So a lot of times whenever we need to dial that criticality up, it's because maybe she just had a bad day and we just kind of let it slide and just ignore it. It's fine. She won't do it again. But if you think about it twice of that really wasn't okay, that wasn't cool, that doesn't need to happen again, speak up within 24 hours and have more conversations of holding people accountable. Don't wait for something to become an event, like where she's been doing it for 6 months and you're like super ticked off now. And you're like, are you freaking kidding me? You're angry. Don't wait for things to become an event. If you see it, say it. Remember, see it, say it, solve it. And stop accepting that C+ work and letting things slide, and start expecting 8+ results, and inserting less fluff into your conversations with people. Remember that Texas toast? Maybe make it just a regular size bread and not so thick. So that's going to help you dial that criticality up a little bit by just being quicker, faster. If you see it, say it, and go in there with just neutral energy. So let's use the front desk girl, for example, of like, hey, Amy, here's our dress code. Gotta have makeup on. You look like you're not feeling too great today. What do we need to do to help you get up to speed? Do you need to go home? What needs to happen? Because we can't have you up here at the front desk like this. How can I help you? So it's being more direct and having those conversations quicker, faster. Now, what if your criticality is too high? What if that volume is too loud? What does that look like? So be mindful of your first responses to people. So a lot of times, if our criticality is high, we tend to go in hot. Remember, our energy is more intense. So be mindful of your first responses to people. Listen more. Ask more questions before responding. Before you kind of jump, kind of bring that energy down a little bit and just kind of listen, ask more questions so you can understand more. Be mindful of your body language too. Are you like giving off body language that, you're upset, you're angry? So just be a little bit more neutral with your energy whenever you are interacting with people. And start to listen first. I think it's really funny if we kind of went through and we circled all the listens. If we're wanting to dial that criticality down and increase our nurturing, listening, guys. Listening first. Allow 30 seconds to be listening before you're engaging with someone. So be curious, ask more questions, really kind of give a posture of, I want to understand. And that is going to dial your criticality down. And start to respond with questions instead of statements. So a lot of times as owners or leaders, we think that we have to have all the answers. We think we have to give the answer right away, or we have to make a statement so it looks like we know what we're doing and that we're competent in our job. But healthy, influential leader is more responding with questions of like, oh, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Because I hadn't thought of it that way. Or that's a great point. I want to hear more of your thoughts around that. So it's being more curious, asking more questions versus feeling like you have to have all the answers. And then start to see the gray area more. We live in a world of duality of either and, good or bad, this or that. Start to live in that gray area a little bit more of both and, of like, where's the gray area in this? Start to validate the process and encourage your team to share more ideas and opinions. Now, PSA, this will make the process more messy and it will slow things down a little bit. But the trade-off is people are going to feel more valued when they're heard and that you are like actually wanting to hear their thoughts or their ideas or their opinions. So that's huge. All right. So, oh my gosh. I know we got started late. So we're going to end a little bit later than 11. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of the action items that you're like, okay, I need to practice this week? Which one stood out to you?
The saying something 7 times in 7 different ways. Because I'm the first to be like, well, I told him. It's like, I think that could be on my tombstone. Well, I said it.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 7 times, 7 different ways, and you can get creative with it.
Yeah.
And what that's doing is that's dialing up that urgency and intensity or achievement for giving clarity and prioritizing. You're painting a picture of what is the priority and how are we clearly going to get there by saying it 7 times, 7 different ways.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. One more. Anybody else have one that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm absolutely starting this?
I love, Jennifer, what you have to say about listening.
Mm.
I tend to jump into problem solving mode really fast, which has its perks, but it has its minuses in that you can scare a lot of people. Which I've been
Yeah.
known to do. So you're dealing with people, not machines. So
Mhm.
to listen more and to work on focusing on those relationships and just all of those things on how to dial up nurturing, and it will be a little more messy, and that's okay.
Totally. Totally. Because what you're doing, Cynthia, is you're actually expanding your influence. You're expanding that influence as a leader of like people who are on your team are going to be like, you know what? Cynthia actually takes the time to hear what my thoughts are. Cynthia actually takes the time. I feel heard when I'm around her. So that influence grows whenever you dial up that nurturing a little bit, and dial down that intensity a little bit. And it's not because you don't care. It's just we've got things to do. Like, I'm a problem solver. That's actually an amazing strength as a leader, right? But it's balancing out those volumes on that is what is going to maximize your credibility and influence. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? One last thought. These are all the things. I mean, and this is just skimming the surface, but these are all the things that we talk about in Enneagram leadership development, and all of that kind of stuff. Because we want to be the best we can possibly be for the people that are choosing to kind of do this career with us. We want to, but sometimes we're moving so quick, so fast, and have so many priorities, we don't really know how. And so we need those actual steps of like, okay, just tell me what to do and how to practice it, and I'll do it. And that's the beauty of this whole process. So, what are some achievement killers? What are some things that actually just kill the spirit in a person of being able to have that kind of like high value on time, wanting to achieve, wanting to hit those kind of goals and dreams and passions, all those things? What are some of the things that kill that for people on our teams or even in ourselves as leaders? Boredom. So if someone is bored, they're kind of their motor, their value on time, all the things is going to die a slow death because they're just bored. And so that's why it's so important to listen and be curious and ask questions of what do you love? What are you passionate about? What would make you feel even more valued here in this company? So it's being curious and listening and asking questions, getting people involved so that they feel like, okay, I'm contributing here, and they're not just bored with the day in and day out. Lack of clarity. So if people have no idea where we're going or why we're going there, they're going to be like Because here's the truth. As salon owners, a lot of times we have this energy of let's jump off the cliff and we'll build our wings on the way down, and we'll figure it out. Or we have this tendency to start this shiny new thing and then a new shiny new thing comes out and we're like, oh, let's do that. Oh, and then we forgot about this over here. And so sometimes that kills kind of the vibe of achievement in a person or a team, because they're like, I don't really want to get on board with this because she's going to change her mind and go on and move on to something else next week anyways. So I really don't want to make a lot of investment or energy in this. So sometimes if there's a lack of clarity of how, why is this a priority, or communication, sometimes that can kill the achievement or the need to be urgent and have intensity about what you're doing. Feeling overwhelmed. So sometimes if there's just too much on my plate and I have no idea why I'm doing this or how you want it done, the picture hasn't been painted clearly, and I'm just feeling super overwhelmed because I'm scared I'm going to fail or not do a good job. Sometimes that can cause people to just kind of shut down out of fear and just being super overwhelmed. Criticality of others. So whether someone is being critical of you or overhears you constantly being critical of everybody else and every process and every system there is, that's going to cause someone to kind of shut down because there's that fear of not being good enough, or just the expectation is so high, I'm never going to reach it because it's never going to be good enough. So why even bother? So sometimes being overly critical of people or systems or processes can cause people to kind of, what's the point? If they're in the wrong role. So sometimes we put people in a role just because we love them, or just because we want to help give them some purpose. And sometimes if somebody is in the wrong role just because you've put them there or said, oh, you'd be amazing at this. Here's what I want you to do. And we didn't really listen, or we weren't really curious about what they're passionate about or what they really want. That can kind of kill that urgency and intensity in someone of being passionate about what they're doing. So that's why it's really important to frequently say, what are you loving about your job? What do you feel like you're really struggling with? And how can I help you with that? And having that open and honest communication. A learner's lack of safety. So my husband, Jason, talks a lot about something called psychological safety. And if someone doesn't feel like they're protected as far as, gossip goes, or, not being able to feel heard, seen, and valued. They don't feel safe, that they are valued in the organization. A lot of times that will cause someone, you'll see them start to shut down, and kind of that passion that they have before kind of fizzle out a little bit if they're not feeling safe. So those are just a few of the achievement killers of some of the people on our teams. And if we can kind of address these before they become a thing, we can really help people be able to maximize being able to hit their goals and feel passionate about what they're doing, because we're actually listening and being curious. Now, making people feel they matter, nurturing. People need to be acknowledged. They do. All people, all humans need to be acknowledged. And remember, not just for what they do, but for who they are as a person. So important. Feel appreciated. So maybe in your next one-on-one, a good question to ask everybody in your one-on-one is, what makes you feel appreciated here? What makes you feel valued? And what can we do to make that even better for you? and really ask them to be specific of, I want to know. So this may feel intimidating to some people on your team. So maybe send that question out in advance, a few days before the one-on-one of, hey, I want you to kind of give some thought to what makes you feel appreciated and valued here. And what can we do to make that better? I really want to listen and be curious and learn from you. They need affirmations. They need to be celebrated. Everyone does. So take time and slow down to celebrate and affirm. And here's the deal. People need it face to face, and they also need it in front of their peers. So for you to take the time to walk up to someone and say, Cynthia, I want to just take 2 seconds. You may not remember this, but I noticed the other day how you stayed after and you did those towels before you left for the end of the day. I just want you to know that's a really big deal, and I noticed that. And then maybe acknowledging that on your team page of like, here's the top 3 things that I want to celebrate about these people today. So taking the time, and a lot of times we hear owners say, I don't have the time to do all that. What am I supposed to do? Hold their hand, pet them all the time. I mean, we hear those things, right? These things take 2 minutes. And it makes so many deposits into the hearts of the people on your team where they feel so seen and valued and appreciated. It's a huge, huge deal. It feels good to us. It feels so good to them too. So it's super important. So, wow, we went through a quick hour of the top 3 characteristics of an influential leader. So I'd love to hear, what are a couple of your takeaways today?
I loved it, all of it. I think that it's just really cool, like particularly what we just went over, like the achievement killers. It's a good it's like the other side of things that we might be putting out there, the way it could be received.
Mm-hmm.
So it's eye-opening for sure.
Love it. For sure. Sometimes we're just moving so quick, so fast. We just don't realize it,
Yeah.
And so slowing down makes a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes the to-do list does get too much, and you're doing everything, but you're not really giving it the clarity that it really truly needs. And this is a great reminder. So much appreciated.
For sure. Anybody else?
Yeah, I definitely loved a lot of everything you went over. One of the bigger standpoints that stood out to me, of you using the verbiage both and versus like either or the black or white, that there is space in between, and everything can be included in, different situations. So that's a really good one for me. Also, just going back to the whole like nurturing behaviors of you calling it, one of the glass balls, just really points out to me the importance of the nurturing behaviors. So yeah, I really liked all this a lot. I have a lot of really good takeaways. So thank you so much.
I love it. And, here's the beautiful part. You can just choose one thing off of all of those lists to focus on for the next 30 days even. And it's going to make a huge difference and a huge impact just by starting with one thing. So you don't have to do all of these things, just kind of get started with one of them and see and observe what happens with it. So anybody else, I want to give anyone time to share if they want to before we go. All right. Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. I love this community platform because how cool is this that we get to gather together and talk about things like this is so awesome. I just encourage you to continue to just kind of dive into making investments into your own mental and emotional bank account, because you're constantly making withdrawals. And I am on Community. My contact info is there. If you ever want to continue with leadership, growth, and development, anything that we offer in the leadership division, I would love to help you or point you in the right direction. And I'm so passionate and have a special place in my heart for the people who lead these salon companies, because you know, it's a big job, and it takes some amazing people who do it. And so I just want to give you all a high five and encouragement. You're doing an incredible job. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And so don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just do one thing and practice that, and then go from there. So I hope y'all have an amazing week. And it was so great to see all of you. And hopefully I'll see you again.
Thank you.